What does it mean to adorn the body with a story? To fuse gold and shell, diamonds and elk teeth, not for fashion's sake, but as reclamation of indigenous narrative. Keri Ataumbi, an enrolled citizen of the Kiowa tribe, is a masterful storyteller who speaks through metal, texture, and form. Her work, bridging contemporary art and indigenous adornment, has redefined what native jewelry can be in the fine art world. From her studio in Santa Fe to museum exhibitions across the country, Keri's jewelry and art challenges, elevate, and inspires. On this episode of Beyond the Art, we explore the craft, the concept, and the courage behind a woman who's not just designing jewelry, she's designing dialogue. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Art, where we dive deep into the stories of Indigenous artists, designers, and creatives who are shaping the contemporary Native art world. I'm your host, Craig Beaumont-Flynn, joined as always by my co-host, Joe Williams.
Hello, everyone.
So, Keri, we're just going to jump right into it and ask you a few questions and get this conversation going. You talk about how different cultural places value on materials, whether it's gold and diamonds or something as deeply significant as shell, quill, or bone. What sparked your interest in exploring these value systems through adornment?
Okay. So, I guess I will start way back when I was a kid. I grew up on the Wind River Reservation at the very beginning, but I'll try to be concise here. I grew up on the Wind River Reservation up in Wyoming, and my mom, her name was Jeri Ah-be-hill. She was the first Native female to own a trading post, right? Like all the trading posts at the time. I was born in 1971. And my mom was born in 1936. So first of all, I take a lot of what I have as a woman for granted, and like going through, she passed away 8 years ago. And so we've gone through a lot of her archives, and she kept everything. There were things like, for example, when she first started her business, she couldn't have a bank account without my father having his name on the account, right? Like, so things that I take for total granted were, that's just being a female. Now add the layer of Indigenous on top of it, right? So we think about like the old timey trading posts, and they're all like white guys in the Southwest. They're the liaison between the poor Indians out in the dirt and the people in the tourists coming by. So my mom started this trading post on the Wind River Reservation, and it was on the highway that was going to Yellowstone Park. And so this is pre cell phones, pre computers, pre all of that, right? So anyone who was going up there would kind of stop at her place, because Wyoming has very vast distances between point A and point B. So she was a representative of Native art, and she understood as a teenager. She was a gifted woman who understood as a teenager that what we made as Native people was fine art. It wasn't craft. It wasn't a trinket to be sold along with the Wrigley's gum at the dime store or whatever. Like, it was actually, this is like the amount of knowledge that went into it. So when my sister and I were growing up, we were tutored at home because it was really rural. Part of our education was Mrs. Goggles. I'm trying to remember Mrs. Goggles' first name. She was this incredible hide tanner. So part of our education was that we had to learn how to tan hides, right? We had to learn how to do all of this stuff and my mom sold all of these pieces in this gallery, and she sold them to the tourists on the way up to Yellowstone National Park. She also sold all of the materials needed to, the hides, the string, the beads, and all of that was sold in her trading post. So the education that I got as a child was crawling around in her store from an infant on up into being a teenager and learning all of this. And she taught my sister and I how to do commerce, because we couldn't just go in there and take whatever we wanted. This was her store. We had to work for her, get a paycheck, take our paycheck, and we could get a discount, an employee's discount, and then we could buy our beads, and we could buy our string and our wax and whatever it is that we needed. And so, which was great, right? I mean, she really taught us how to run our own business. She learned how to run her own business and really believed in Native fashion. She was one of the when she made a decision when she was, I think, 28, right around Saturn's return, right? Like, who am I going to be in my life? And she always wore her Native clothes. She went to the grocery store. I was such a pain in the butt when I was a kid. Oh my God, you go to the grocery store with her, go anywhere with her, and everyone wanted to stop. Oh my God, you're so beautiful. What is this? What are you wearing? Like how, like, and I'm like, oh my God, this is taking so long, right? But what she was doing was she was on a grassroots level, right? Educating people about who we are as people, and who we are as people. It's through adornment, right? As Native people, we know, like when you look, well, when I was a kid, it was really like this. Times are changing, but when I was a kid growing up, when we'd go to powwows, you could tell what tribe somebody belonged to. And now when you go to ceremonies, you can, if you know how to read people's adornment, right, you can actually know, where they come from, whose family they are, and you can tell, details of how many battles their kids have been in, like how, there's so much information in our adornment. Sure. So to answer your question, I was sort of steeped in this understanding that things are more meaningful than just the surface, right? And then as I've grown up and looking around, and I grew up also being rural, we hunted and we gardened and we had small livestock, and so I grew up butchering, and I grew up like learning how to grow food and all of that. So that's like knowledge, right? That's a lot of kids don't. Where does chicken come from? The grocery store, right? It's so they so growing up with that knowledge and understanding that that's actually like ancestral knowledge that's really important, and that the environment to have a healthy herd of elk is like, that means the environment has to be healthy, right? So all of those layers and all of those ways of being that we're taught as Indigenous people, you hear that, like all my relations and all of that, it's like, that's actually for real. That is how we think. That is how our languages are so complex. That's inherent in who we are. So it would only be obvious to me that that's what my work then becomes. That.
So you mix material considered valuable in Western culture with those that hold deep significance within Native traditions. What conversations do you hope this contrast sparks?
Well, that we're here and we're valuable, right? Like, I mean, I have a story that I'd like to tell about that happened years ago. It was during when that Standing Rock was happening, and that's when I first really started leaning into this of like, this is that the value that is in the objects and in how we put the objects together and in the value of our environment. All of that is important, and maybe more important than these things that are valuable in the Western world. The diamond industry is a really good example of that. Diamonds are like, there's so many diamonds. There are so many diamonds on this planet. There's so many diamonds in this universe. There are so many diamonds, but it's a really good marketing scheme to only allow one or two out that are the really big ones, and then the little ones come out, and then there's like this whole thing, and like people are it's smoke and mirrors. It's like jazz hands, right? Like it's a smoke and mirror game for the industry, the jewelry industry, to make money with diamonds. So the story is back when Standing Rock was happening, and I was giving my spiel about, this is really important. It's just as important. Like, what's more important, the environment or something that's shiny and pretty that you're being told is more valuable than the environment? And I told this to this lady, and she bought this rather expensive necklace, and it looked beautiful on her, and she was very excited about it. And then she invited me out for coffee maybe a month later, and I said, sure, yeah, absolutely. Let's go for coffee. So I hung out with her, and she said, I just want to let you know that, my husband and I have a couple of like financial investments, and this is like, they're in that upper echelon, right? Like they're in this other realm of income. And she said, I just want to let you know that I, because of what you told me, I disinvested from the Standing Rock, or from that oil pipeline. And I was floored. I literally I just got goose pimples, right? Like I was like, this, changing the world one pair of earrings at a time. Like that was real money. And that actually made a difference. And it had to do with the fact that she, like my mom, right, had beauty on her adornment. And it attracted this person to come and, oh, who are you? What are you wearing? Like, what does that mean? And that was the same sort of, that's the idea of what my jewelry is. What is that? It's so shiny. It's so pretty. Oh, that's so unusual. And then what's the fallout from that?
Well, that is so powerful. And it's not just about the materiality or materials. It's about the process, knowledge, and the act of creation itself. Do you see your work as a bridge between these two different worldviews?
I don't know. I don't know what that means.
Do you see yourself bridging the gap between what you provide as an artist, a Native American Indigenous artist, to the creation of the materials that you use into telling our story? And so people understand it's not just pretty stuff. Like you said, when you're a kid, people are like, oh, what's that mean? What's that mean?
Well, it's complex. We live in a complex world. My dad was from Finzazzo, which is a little town in northern Italy, just north of Milan. You know, I like to make my spaghetti sauce with buffalo meat, right? Like, it's a complex world. It's a complex world that we live in. And there's not one of us who isn't like, we're engaged. It's 2025 and we're engaged in our technological world, and we're engaged in different communities and different cultures. And so, yeah, I think we're all bridges, aren't we? I mean, aren't we? Like, how can we not be?
Yeah. So when you are designing, do you think about how the different cultures will interact and interpret the materials?
No, not at all. I think about the materials and I say, what do you want to do? And they answer me. I spend a lot of time alone. I told you. I do. I like to work in series. I sort of have always worked in series, and something will sort of attract me, and I'll take it and run with it. And sometimes it's really what I've been doing the last couple of years is I've been working with Southern Plains designs, because I grew up with Southern Plains designs. I love our metalwork, and it really, I have heard more so early on in my career, not so much now, but earlier in my career, I would have people come up to me when I was showing my wares, and they'd be like, "Oh, this isn't Native jewelry." And I just love it when white people come up to you and tell you your work isn't Native. It's like, oh, really? Okay. So, yes, it is. And it got me thinking and realizing that so much of what outer perspective of what our jewelry and our adornment has to do with the fact that the railroad was coming through the Southwest. So all of the outsiders saw what was in the Southwest, which is Southwestern jewelry. So that's the beginning of it. Right. And then as it goes out there, it's like that Lolima and turquoise and all, Zunis, who I think are oh my God, they're the best jewelers in the world, as far as I'm concerned. Right. Like, all of that is like that's what's being perceived as Native. And being from Kiowa, I'm from the Southern Plains, and we have so much amazing metalwork that has so much information in it, but there's not, what is that? Like, what is that? And I went to, oh gosh, this was a while back. Maybe I say a while back, maybe it wasn't not that long ago, maybe 7 years ago, I was in Scotland, and I went to the National Museum of Scotland, and I walked in, and I was so taken, what is it? They have this little, one of their rooms in the museum is Native America. And I walked in, it was all Kiowa. I was like, oh my God, there's all this Kiowa jewelry here. And I thought, I haven't seen this in a museum. Because when you go to museums, you see you see pots from the Southwest, you see blankets from the Southwest, and you see Lakota beadwork, and you see, all of the big showy stuff that is, but all the more subtle things and the more things with nuances, they're all in the back, right? And the fact that here's a European museum that was highlighting, and not just Kiowa stuff, they were highlighting black leggings things. I was like, this is really this is who I belong to. And here I am across the pond seeing this. What is that? That instigated me to start, I'm going to start making contemporary Kiowa jewelry that's because that's what I wear. That was the first pair of earrings I owned, was a pair of German silver earrings that my mom had bought me that, they were little baby earrings, because I was 2, right? But they were little baby earrings. And that's, we grow up with that couture. And so I work in series. I've been working with contemporary Southern Plains style things. My recent drop that I just did last spring was I was revisiting an early series that I did that was based on insects, and I stopped doing that. I try to do like a series and then stop. I don't want to just like become the insect lady or become the Southern Plains jewelry lady or whatever. So I also don't. I used to give to myself a lot when I was younger of, oh, I'm a schizophrenic because I go do this and then I go do that and I go do this, and it's like, no. Now as a 55-year-old woman, I look back at my career and it's like, oh, it's starting to all make sense now. And I believe if you follow what it is that you want to do, there is actually a storyline in there, and these storylines are. I'm still talking about the environment. I started off talking about the environment. I'm still talking about the environment, and doing it through means that are, mining silver and gold is not exactly a great environmental. There's a lot of damage that happens to the earth through mining silver and gold, right? So I made a decision early on in my career to only use recycled metal. So, because there's a lot of metal in the world, and it can be melted down, and it can be recycled, and that in the jewelry industry now has become a thing. Like they're definitely promoting that a lot.
More sustainability, I guess, because of the throwaway society we've become, that you
Absolutely.
can use those materials and recycle them into
Absolutely.
new pieces. Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, your work is described as contemporary adornment, but it's deeply rooted, as you mentioned, in Kiowa aesthetics and philosophy. Can you talk about how your pieces connect to ceremonial and philosophical traditions?
Oh, I use a lot of symbols like there's a crescent symbol that for us is a bison, like that, and people are like, oh, it's the moon, and it's like, well, yeah, it can be the moon, but it's also, for me, every time I make it, for me, it's bison. It's our connectivity to bison, which was, bisons are everything, right? Like that was our clothing and our housing and our food and our spiritual connection was through that animal. So like that little crescent symbol comes up a lot. I don't do things. I own peyote jewelry, but will never ever make that for commercial sale. So I have boundaries. I have some clear boundaries with myself of what's okay and what's not okay to use. For us, we have really familial things like speaking about beadwork as an example. There's like family designs, so it's very inappropriate for us to. Speaking as a Kiowa, to like that belongs to somebody else's family. I wouldn't just go like, oh, I'm going to make that because it's so pretty. I'll just copy that design there. So, and that again goes back to my mom's training, who trained my sister and I to be really clear on that. The other part of that is that we have in my tribe we have societies. So the society that I belong to is we're own day, and I always think, there was a time in our beings where, pre-contact, that there was no, all of the fallout and all of that intergenerational trauma that we're currently dealing with, all of the residential school and all of that, which my mom was put into residential school when she was, I think she was 5 or 6 when she went all the way through high school. She was trained as a domestic servant. All of that, there was a time where we didn't have that, right? Where we had our own ways of being in the world, and I just really believe that like Native people, we have so much to offer, and there's been so much damage that was done by this country that we're currently living in, and I really believe in owning that space of own day, because that own day is someone who's like unlike the current culture that's dominating this country right now, which is the wealthier you get, the more you hang on to, the more you hold. I mean, you can see it happening right now in the government, like with this small group of people are going to get bigger and richer, and they're going to hang on to it more, and they're going to have more power and more power and more power. And my understanding, and I don't know anything, but I just, from what I understand, what I believe I understand is the more you have, the more it is your responsibility to give. It is more your responsibility to give, right? To give back, to have, if Dougie gave you a gift, it is your responsibility to use that gift and give it out and give, right? And that's
True.
that's being at that level. So
in essence, it's paying it forward.
Yeah, it's paying it forward,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it's paying it forward, and it's thinking about the generations ahead, and also being informed by who came behind you, right?
True. Mm-hmm.
Who came behind you, and who's holding you up, because we're here for just such a flash, right? It's just a little flash that we're here. So, yeah, I sort of went off on a tangent there. So
it's okay. That's what this show's for.
I think what's great about this and what you're saying, it really sort of links in with the questions that we have, and it sort of leads into this next one where do you see your work, Adornment, in the series that you're creating as a continuation of storytelling and identity of our culture?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I tell personal stories. I don't feel like I have. I guess I don't feel the right to tell other people's stories. And I tell personal stories. I think a lot about, I guess they call it myth, which to me, it's like, I don't know really, I don't have a word for it in English. Like our spiritual stories. Like I think about our origin stories, and to me, they're equivalent to like the Bible, or they're equivalent to the Torah, or they're equivalent to the Quran, or, they're the stories that talk about the deep spiritual essence of what things are, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a duality in our stories. There's this, and you can see it in our colors, right? You can see it in the red and the black. You can see it in the red and the blue, and you can see we have a half boy in our stories, and he's not a twin, but there's a half boy. And when I have visited with other Native people from other cultures, they also have that. There's twins or these half people that show up in their stories, and that to me is that. It's that struggle that every single human being has, the good and the bad in us, the male and the female in us, the black and the white, the yin and the yang, that duality that goes back and forth that every human being individually has, every couple has, every mother and child has, every, countries have, like it goes on and it gets bigger and bigger. And that's that way of being. So to tell those stories in my jewelry, I think about that a lot. Some of my pieces are narrative. I'm working on a piece right now that it's been in my vault for about 2.5 years, and I'm just letting it come when it's coming. But it's actually a narrative story about it's a Kiowa creation narrative story. And I've done a couple of those other pieces, and those are my pieces that take a long time for me to make. And when I make them, I don't know. Sometimes they end up in a personal collection. Sometimes they end up in a museum. I don't know, but to me, I feel like that's the core of what I'm here to do, and that's the core of what my actual body of work as an artist is. All the other pieces are supporting characters. They're all those earrings and the necklaces and the rings and all of that are really, they're meaningful and they're fun, and I really enjoy them, but they're the crowd at the concert. The one who's on the stage, those are those really special pieces that take a long time to make. And so, yeah, so I don't know if that answers your question.
Do you feel that you wait till that piece speaks to you in essence when it's ready to, I guess, come to life?
Well, there's a lot going on in life, there's like, you gotta like,
the balance.
The balance. And I don't like the word balance because it implies like walking on a tightrope. It's like you're balancing there and you're going to fall off at any point. So I always try to like get myself into a space that's a little bit more like that, all my relations, right? My being in harmony with something, because when it clicks, it just clicks. It just like, boom, 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 boom. Like it just, everything like comes together. And there's moments, like I did a piece last winter. It was for a client and I felt so bad. He's a beautiful man. And he had asked for this piece. It was a collaboration piece with Jamie Okuma that I did for him. We did for him, but my half of it was taking forever. And I was like, why can't I get this out? Why can't I get it out? And finally, when it all came together and I got it out, it was literally like the minute I sat it down on my bench and I said, okay, it's done. It was like the floodgates opened. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to do this and this and this and this. And I really literally within like, I don't know, maybe 30 or 40 minutes, sat there and just had to draw. There were quick sketches, but I drew out like 4 or 5 pieces, which I then easily made. So there's some sort of flow that happens. And sometimes I'm fighting against it and you get really distracted because it's time to put the garden in and you got to go walk the dog. And oh my God, I don't, and then I got sick and then this and happened and whatever. Like, but then there's other times when the flow is just like it just goes. So, and I don't know how it works. I try to ride it when it happens, but
just go with it.
I try to go with it. I try to be in a good way. I try to be a good person and just and be present with it and be wholesome. And it, that sounds like I'm Pollyanna. I don't mean to be, but when I say wholesome, be like whole, like every day I used to run. I was a long distance runner for a long time. So I had this really sort of regimented life where I'd get up, go for a run, go to my studio, take a break, work in my house for about an hour, go back to my studio, and then go back into my house and do like house stuff. Right. And it worked for a really long time. And then things shifted. And now I'm creating another thing, but I work with structure. I have a very structured days every day. And I make sure that I do something that is active, creative, and daily. So those 3 things happens every single day. And in that, I try not to be too like, I have to do it at this time, X, Y, and Z, but I keep it loose. Like it has to be active, it has to be creative, and it has to be daily. And I've done that since I was 20. And so far it's been working.
Active, creative, and what's the last one?
Daily. It has to be structured. The structured part is like, so daily meaning like you can't just like go for a run once occasionally. Like it has to be daily.
Right.
Whatever it is that you choose to do, has to be daily.
Well, you divide your time between New Mexico and traveling quite a bit. I mean, Scotland's not just next door. And you're deeply connected to the communities and ceremonies you grew up with. How does movement, both physical and cultural, shape your perspective as an artist?
Oh, hope gom. We have that's a Kiowa word, and it means like let's go, like love to travel, like let's like we're going, and that's I felt really sort of odd about that for a long time, and gosh, until I was probably in my 40s, and I finally realized, oh, that's so Kiowa to travel all the time. Like we have always traveled. In my culture, like our lands are like from way up north. And there's stories in our culture of like people going so far south that they saw the hairy men, right? Monkeys, right? We're talking monkeys, right? Like really traveling, right? Like really traveling. Like
I was thinking Sasquatch, but
oh yeah, well, yes, that too, right? That, which is something I just had this argument with somebody. They were like, "Oh yeah, Bigfoot's like blah blah blah. Like how come Bigfoot's all over the place?" I'm like, because it's like a species. It's not just one Bigfoot, it's a species. Right. He was like, no. Like, no, it's species, believe me. Anyway, that's off topic. Traveling is, I finally realized I was like, that is a really Kiowa way of being, because we would, I think traditionally travel go off in all of the different bands, and then we would come back together at very key points in the year. And, around solstice, around summer solstice, and have our doings. And we still do that. I don't live in Oklahoma. I live in New Mexico, which is very close to Oklahoma, but I go back, something happens, you go back, right? Like you go so I think that's just who we are as a culture.
Mm-hmm. With all this traveling, what has sailing and being on the water taught you creatively?
Oh my God, that was crazy. And I miss it. I haven't done it in about a year. Sailing was, talk about fish being out of water. I grew up in Wyoming, and for us, like my swimsuit as a child was like cut off shorts, tennis shoes, and a t-shirt, like every other res kid, right? Right. I didn't own a swimsuit until I got into my 20s. And then I ended up with this partner who his family, his family was like the black sheep of his larger family. They sold everything, and this is in like 1956 or something, sold everything and moved onto a tiny wooden boat. So his childhood was literally living on a wooden boat in, this is pre-internet and all of that stuff. It was like, he's out there with his sextant looking at the stars, right? Like, and I'm like, I need my electronics. I want my electronics because it's big and scary out there and totally otherworldly. Like there are moments that, like, here's an example. Like sailing offshore, which was the thing that scared the bejeebers out of me. Like I'm not a good swimmer. I'm not a good sailor. And it's like me and one other person on this boat. And if something happens, I'm in charge, right? And I'm, I got to get this thing back. And like, if something happens, I got to turn the boat around and get the person who fell off. So it was hugely expansive. So the example was, I was out offshore and we were sailing, just the two of us. And I looked over and I saw a sailfish come out of the water, like fully out of the water. And it was living his best life. And I was like, my first thought was, it's not over a bar. I was like, wait, what? And I realized I have never seen a sailfish unless it was stuffed with a big row of booze underneath it. Like, that's the only time I've ever seen a sailfish. I was like, this, and there it was out living its best life in the middle of the ocean. And I was like, oh, this is the planet I live on. What is this planet? Or like, here's another one, like jumping into the water and swimming and the phosphorus. And like at night, it's like night and it's dark and as you swim and your hands are moving and there's like these swirls of phosphorus coming off. It's like glow in the dark under the water. I was like, I didn't even know this existed. Like, what is this? I'm like from Wyoming, right? I'm like, elk, I get that. I understand that. Snow. Yes, I understand snow. This water thing was really like, and yeah. So it was really, it was incredibly good. It is still incredibly good because also as you age, and I didn't start really sailing until I was I'm 53 now. So I was probably in my late 40s when I really started sailing, totally out of my comfort zone, like completely like it was going to bed at night, really, really tired. And I was like, I haven't felt like this since I was in school. Because, when you're learning in school and your brain is getting stimulated and all these new ideas are happening and these new things you're reading and all of that, and you go to bed tired because that was that feeling and it was really invigorating. And it also really, it inspired my work. I did a collection, an ocean collection that was just, again, material stuff. And I used a lot of shells that I found on the beach that are little, anyone can go pick up shells, right? They're for the taking, but pairing them with the gold and with the diamonds and I see jewelers that do things like they carve a shell out of some fancy material, or they turn the shell into gold. And I'm like, I can't make anything more beautiful than the shell itself. So I'm just going to put it on a chain here.
Right. The natural material, I think, are the most prevalent of beauty because they are real.
Yeah. Yeah.
One thing we try to explore and love to explore on this podcast is how Native American artists are redefining what Native art means. And we kind of briefly talked about it at the very beginning. How have you faced challenges in pushing beyond what people expect from Indigenous jewelry?
Well, I just that reminded me of this little series that I did on the side. So my degree is in painting and in art history, and painting and drawing is really my first love. And I love ledger paintings, and I, doodle around. But that's not for commercial things. So one of my little series was Kiowas on yachts. And that's, because we'd have my friends come out and hang out with us and I was like, yeah, like ledger paintings, Kiowas on yachts. Because it's 2025 and we're Native and we're on yachts.
Yeah.
So there you go. Yeah. More than why not? This is who we are. We're here in this world, right? Like, Natives on podcasts, Kiowas on yachts, Natives in the government. Deb Holland was the first female Native in the federal government, right? Like, how is this 2025 and that just now happened? Well, we'll see if it continues or ever happens again.
We have to wait 4 years. Different podcast.
That's a different podcast. Yeah, let's keep this light.
So are collectors and museums becoming more open to contemporary Native jewelry?
I don't think so. I'd like to say so. Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely. I have friends who are in museums and who are curators and who are directors, and they're really wonderful. And I do believe that they believe in me and they believe in other jewelers. I think there's a thing, and this is beyond culture. I think it's a human thing, maybe, or maybe it's American culture. I'm not really sure. There's jewelry is a side thought. Jewelry is an afterthought. Jewelry is not fashion; it's an afterthought. It's, fashion is big, like these costumes and blankets and dresses and all this stuff. And jewelry is this thing that happens after, right? It's an afterthought. The same in the museum world. It's like, oh, jewelry, there's a jewelry museum in Germany. There's a little room over here in the Royal Museum in Great Britain that, there's these little things, but there's not, like, is jewelry really part of Jean Quick-to-See Smith, bless her heart, she included a pair of my earrings in a museum show that she did at the National Museum in Washington, and which I really appreciated her doing. I was really, really appreciative of her doing that, because everything is like, if you can. There was another piece in there that were these. It was fabulous. It was like fantastic. It was these giant earrings that were floor to ceiling, right? So you have to make it into something that this is contemporary art, and it's the shock value or whatever. As I said that sort of flippantly, and I didn't mean or whatever. It was a really stunning piece, and it really made a huge impact. But it's hard for jewelry to have that same sort of impact, because a lot of times it's on your body. It has to be comfortable, so it doesn't necessarily, like, the big jewelry that's like this massive thing that is really unwearable. It doesn't have that same sort of impact, and that's across cultures, right? Like, that's across anything. So I would like to think that jewelry could be, and I'm always like tooting my horn about that, like, the little guy out there, like, hey, jewelry is also art. Jewelry is also art. Jewelry is part of fashion. Jewelry is not an afterthought. Jewelry is actually something, because as I told you how I grew up, that's that pretty little lore come in. And it's also really highly personal, right? Like, we wear the wedding ring, or, oh, I've had these earrings that I've worn like since I was a child, or this necklace that means so much to me, or I got this, I inherited this, and it was my, great great grandmother's, or whatever. Like, it had, psychics. What do you bring to a psychic? You bring a piece of jewelry, because it's so intimate. You wear it in your body. You wear it, every day with you.
Right.
So it has that intimacy. And museums, I think, go for the shock value, the pretty, it's easily accessible. It's the draw. You can see it from across the room. So, yeah, I don't know. I think there's a long way to go there.
What are you most surprised about yourself on this journey that you've learned?
Oh, that's a great question. What am I most surprised about myself? I might have to circle back to that, because I don't know what I'm like surprised. Like, did you mean surprised? Is that the word?
What have you learned about yourself on this journey?
What have I learned about myself?
Mm-hmm. That you're most surprised about? It's like, I didn't know that.
Oh, gosh. Well, is this a therapy session?
That's the other podcast.
That's the other podcast. After the political podcast, we're going to.
We don't make you cry here. We just kind of, go down deep.
I think, and I don't know if, honestly, if this is like the path of jewelry, or the path of the fact that I'm, fully in menopause. Like I have which is a real deal. Like, and I am speaking very freely about it, because I feel like women do not have that platform, and have not had that platform. And again, like, things that I took for granted, that I was like, oh, I can just do this. It's like my mom and my mom's generation paved that way. There is something that happens and at first, when it started coming on, I was like, oh, I got this. I went through puberty, right? There's a whole new ball of wax, right? That's the thing. And one of the things that is really deeply, deeply profound, and I'm extremely grateful for it, is I like, I honestly don't give a F, right? Like, I'm like this, I wish I had this confidence that I had when I wish I had this confidence that I have now when I was 30 or even 40, because it's sort of like that. It feels like I have same standing as men.
Mm.
Like, I have same standing as an average middle-aged white man. Like, think about that for a second, right?
It's earned.
Or is it earned? I don't know. I don't know if it is or not. I don't know if it is or not. But it's a freedom. I feel a freedom that I didn't feel before. And I think, as far as I can tell, I'm like, that's the freedom that all those young punks have. That's the freedom that all those young guys out there who can mess up, and it's no big deal. They just get back up and keep going, right?
Mm-hmm.
That ain't no thing. I just, this is all for me for the taking. This is all for me for the taking. And I don't feel that it's all there for me for the taking, but what I do feel like is like, I have the confidence that if I mess this up, it's going to be okay. Like, I can move on and do something else, or I can learn from this and do some, like so that like deep layer of, I don't know how it works, but that would be something that is recently that I am very, very, very pleased and very grateful to be the age and the gender that I am.
I think it's wisdom in living life and learning from life and taking life experiences and accepting failure, accepting your own mistakes, and learning from it and saying, "Oh, I've screwed up."
Which there's been a lot of. There's also something I noticed. I told you earlier that I had my degrees in painting and art history, and that really is my first love. And I keep thinking that I want to go back to painting, because I've tried it various times in my career to go back to painting. And there's something with it, with jewelry. For me, I can make a mistake and it's like, okay, whatever. Like, I made a mistake and that wasn't great. And, that goes in the scrap pile, or, oh, that was an expensive mistake. And I really learned from that, which I have, which is kind of set me back, because it's, you're working with these materials that cost a lot. With painting, there's something else for me personally that it gets into my head of like, oh, am I a good person or a bad person? It's like, it's a painting, for crying out loud, right? Like, why I'm so wrapped up in it. So yeah, I don't know if I don't know. I think different mediums bring different things to life.
So is the process for you the same when creating jewelry? Since I assume it's from mind to hand, since they're both physical interaction with the materiality. Is the process the same for you while you're creating those pieces?
No. Yes and no. Sometimes it depends on what the piece is. There are sometimes with the jewelry that I'm very specific and I make a drawing, and it can be really a clear drawing. And sometimes what happens with that clear drawing is I don't need to actually make the actual piece because I made the drawing. And so I let that go. And there's also times when I'm making the jewelry that as I'm making it, I go into an idea of like, oh, it's going to be X, Y, and Z. And as I'm working with it, there's another stone that pops up. And it's almost like the stone's like, I want to be part of this. And it's like, okay, how do you want to be part of that? Okay, there's, again, I spend a lot of time alone, so I'm talking to my inanimate objects, but we're like, how do you want to be a part of that? And then the design shifts and changes to incorporate this other object, so there's it really is a conversation between me and the materials. But that's not every piece. It's, again, it depends on what the pieces are.
So should we jump into quickfire rounds?
Sure.
We have a set of questions.
I feel like I'm on a cooking show.
Yes.
Well, we got a timer.
Yeah. So you bring this up, and actually it leads right into one of the questions, and that's what's a material that you love working with right now?
Oh, I always love gold.
Shiny gold. And new?
No, it's not shiny and new. It's very warm. It's the sun.
In one word, describe your creative style.
Free.
Okay. If you weren't an artist, what would you be?
Probably a chef. I don't know. I always wanted to be an artist. At one point when I was 8, I wanted to be a mortician because I was interested in anatomy, and I thought that'd be a good way to learn anatomy.
What's the best piece of advice you'd ever received?
Probably that daily active creative.
I've written that one down too for myself.
Yeah. No, it's like, it's the difference between feeding yourself McDonald's every day and feeding yourself organic food that comes out of your garden.
Active creative daily.
Yeah.
Let's repeat it, Joe.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I think if you work for yourself, it's really like, because both my parents worked for themselves. And then I was tutored at home. So being in an environment that like, you got to generate it yourself, right? Because you're not like, oh, I get up and I go to the X, Y, and Z every day. And I have, I can meet deadlines obviously, but that allows you to create your own deadlines and then meet your own deadlines.
It makes you always show up to do the work, right? That always seems to be a theme with so many people who are doing well.
The other thing that I heard when I was a child, and I don't know who said this to me, it was like one of my mom's friends or something, was if you make play and work synonymous, then you're golden. So if those two words are synonymous for you, then you're good.
Favorite place to find inspiration?
Inside.
Can you elaborate?
So when I was running I spend a lot of times, I live in the country and I was a trail runner. And now I've taken up swimming, and that's a new thing for me because I really don't know how to swim. So I just learned how to put my face in the water, which I'm very proud of myself. And I've been taking swimming lessons, and there's this whole thing called total immersion swimming. So in doing that, like it used to happen with running, and it's just now starting to, maybe I'm hoping, fingers crossed, starting to happen with swimming, is if you for me, I go to work in the morning, I take a break in the afternoon, and I used to go for a run. Now I go for a swim, and under the water or out while you're just trying to put one foot in front of the other, there's a thing that happens that it's like, you get the aha moment. You get that like, oh, that's what I meant. And then you can go back to the studio and in the afternoon, follow through on that little like aha moment. So that's what I mean by inside. If you quiet your monkey mind down, and for me, my meditation has to be active. So thus the running or now the swimming is like, and it's really peculiar being under the water because it's also this like trying to coordinate my breathing and not choke, which I do. And I'm like flailing around in the middle of the pool, but just like allowing myself to have those moments. Right. But that eventually I believe that I'm going to get to a place with the swimming that I can get into that same sort of zone that I had by being a runner.
What's a song that always gets you in a creative mood?
Oh God, I listen to so much music and it's all over the board. And at one point I was teaching classes and I would take in my playlist and my students really would roll their eyes at me because they thought I was like, what kind of music? Because I would just put it on random play. And it would go from everything from like old school, like country western to like opera arias to AC/DC and to Justin Timberlake. I mean, like I am across the board with my music taste. So there's not any one particular song that I'm down with right now. But there's a woman who I just got introduced to. What is her name? Something Farrell. Something, I don't know. She's this lady who I saw at concert and I was like, oh, this is an interesting person to listen to. I can't remember her name.
What's a dream collaboration?
Oh, yes, collaborations. I'm working on a collaboration with Tanya Larson right now, which I'm very excited about. I have collaborated with Jamie Okuma. I have my friend Pat Pruitt and I are talking about a collaboration. I've been talking, and it's just a matter of time and timing. And I think the collaboration really has it, like you're dealing then with two different people's flow, and to get the flow in the right place. Right. Joe Big Mountain and I have visited about it. I don't know, like those are the people I'm currently talking about. So dream collaborations, those we're dreaming and to be manifested in the future.
What's an object you always carry with you?
My elk teeth.
Are you wearing them now?
Yes.
Okay. And I think I need some rings.
Oh, yes, I do think you do too. I agree. Yes, I think men should wear more jewelry. And,
Absolutely.
And maybe that's what I should do. Maybe I should just make a whole men's line.
I had my ears pierced in my 20s, and I've always thought about, should I go back? I miss it, and
yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes, I usually do have more jewelry on but this morning I was mindless.
So my mother taught us to always have a pair of earrings in our wallet, because if you go out of your house and you forgot your earrings, it kind of means you're naked. So
makes sense. So what's next for you, Keri? What's coming up?
Well, I'm looking forward to this summer. I'm doing my summer collection and in Indian Market, which is always such a great time. I'm very grateful for Indian Market. It's one of the things that I love about it is it feels very much like it's a time for Native artists in that little community to come together and visit with each other. So I'm looking forward to that and seeing and then hopefully there's a trip in the future. I'm looking forward. I don't know yet. We're working on it. We've been working at the house, and the homestead this past year has really been focused on the property and just sort of getting everything. I live rurally, so I have a lot of plants and things that I take care of. Trying to downsize on the animals, but take care of all the.
So will you have a new collection for the summer market?
Yes. Yes. I try to work in small groups, and I have a new collection coming out. Menswear.
Really?
There is a few men's pieces. There are some men's pieces in there.
Me and Joe might be in Santa Fe, hopefully this summer, doing this show.
Oh, yes. Well, come by and see me. Yeah. Yes. Well, that's how you manifest things, right? You got to say them out loud, and then
you got to say it out loud so that they hear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Keri, this has been an amazing conversation. Do you want to add anything or share anything more about yourself and your artistry?
I'm just really grateful that you all would take the time out to visit with me, and I appreciate being part of what you do.
Joe, you got anything?
No, I'm just really grateful for this conversation. This has really been wonderful. Thank you so much, Keri.
Yeah, your work is not only stunning, but deeply thought-provoking, and we appreciate you sharing your insights with us today. It's been a complete joy and pleasure to have you on our show.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you, Keri, and we'll see you soon. Keri Ataumbi reminds us that jewelry is not simply adornment, it's identity made visible, memory forged in metal, and resistance wrapped in elegance. Through her hands, legacy becomes wearable, and through her vision, we see a future where Native women continue to shape the art world on their terms. Thank you, Keri, for your brilliance, your balance, and your unwavering voice. This has been Beyond the Art. Until next time, keep creating with purpose and wear your truth with pride.